Hello and welcome back to Carl's Conversations. I am so glad and honored to be bringing you a showcase in Black excellence during the month of February, Black History Month. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm not one who thinks that we have to limit Black history to the month of February. And I do have the sneaky suspicion that as we roll out these first few episodes of this showcase, that what we're doing here is going to go far beyond the boundaries of February 2025. On the other side of the screen, you see that bright looking young lady, none other than Dr. Valcine Brown out there in Southern California. She is an educator. She is a coach. She's an author. And if you follow her on TikTok, you know what a wonderful and humorous and informative content creator she is. And let me tell you, when she does her own little fashion show, matching from head to toe and the cup to match. Now, see, y'all think y'all matching, but when your outfit matches your cup and your personality, then you will understand Dr. Valcine Brown. I thank you, God, for saying yes to our invitation to come to Carl's Conversations and come and be a part of this showcase of Black excellence. Thank you, Dr. Brown. I certainly appreciate you.
Oh, Carl, thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation with you. I feel truly honored and blessed to come and spend this time with you. Thank you so much.
All right. I want people to know who you are. Now, as I have paid attention to you on social media, because that's how I came to know who you were, it was on TikTok. And the first video I saw, I can't even remember what it is. I just remember me laughing like, who is this lady? And you do so well, even when you're a little aggravated. I like the way you pause and you get your words together and you enunciate and you do it with a smile. But I'm laughing because I'm already knowing what you're thinking in the background.
Ooh, sometimes I have to train my face to not react.
Yes.
Take that moment and and pause because I was always taught that words said in anger cannot be taken back. And in my youth and impetuousness, of course, you just mouth off, right?
That's right.
But a part of growing in grace is taking those moments, right? And reflecting and especially being mindful how you talk to the people you care about.
Yes.
You need to make sure that you never disrespect them
Yes.
because some wounds they take a while to heal.
Mm. You know, that's amazing. And we start off with that, right? And y'all, that was a freebie. But I was telling Dr. Brown in the studio before we came on air why I invited her. Let me tell y'all something. We have so many what we would call unsung heroes, people who may not have 5 million followers on their social media. Maybe they don't have a published book. Maybe they don't have all of these titles and positions and all that, but they are the bedrock of our families, of our communities. You understand? And I think that when we talk about excellence, especially excellence in the Black community, it's time that we start to celebrate each other. You know, as Dr. Brown said in the studio, we can give people flowers while they're still here.
Yes,
Don't
yes,
wait till I'm stretched out in front of that church. Don't wait till then. You know what I mean? Let
yes.
me
Don't
let
come to
me.
my funeral acting a fool, talking about you should have told me this and should have told me that. Tell me now.
Yes, yes. And so that's why we're doing this. So, Dr. Brown, I want to know your story. You are an educator and have been an educator for a while. And as I read your bio, it looks to me that you have continued your education along the way. Now, many of us, and I say us because I'm included, I'm not sure, as much as I do love children, as much as I do love to teach, I'm not sure if I would be suited for the high school classroom and all that
Woo.
comes with it. The instruction would not be such a challenge to me. It's the other things. But
Yes.
there has to be something that motivates you to do what you do, that holds your interest. Because I would say, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that to do what you do, you really have to love it.
You do. You absolutely have to love it. Now there are aspects of it I don't like, but
Hmm.
all in all, I love it. There's nothing else I would rather do than to teach. And I love feeling that I am empowering the youth. I teach at a school that is predominantly minorities, predominantly Hispanic and Black culture. We have a few white students there, but predominantly minorities. And I think it's so important for number one, that our students see themselves reflected in areas of leadership. And I think it's important for them to see me as a human, for me to see them as a human. And I take time to build community with my students in the class. I tell them that we're going to have some tough times. And
Hmm.
what's going to help us get through those tough times is if we genuinely respect one another, we understand one another. I said, because every relationship, and I have to have the conversation with them, that relationship isn't just romantic, it's
Hmm.
how you relate to your peers, how you relate to your teachers, when you get a job, relate to your coworkers. Every relationship is going to have some bumps in the road. And how you deal with those bumps is going to determine if there's a road for you to still continue down. And what I've invested in my students myself and what they've invested and entrusted in me has really allowed the classroom to become a place where we flourish. And it makes me love the job even more. I don't just go and teach and then I'm out, especially with my cheerleaders. You know, I keep in touch with them after they leave. I have students who stay in touch with me after they leave, and they want to know how I'm doing. And they'll be like, Dr. Brown, do I have to find my FAFSA again right now or later? Yeah, you want to do it right now? Okay, well, Dr. Brown, they said that I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need your opinion. And that's, I believe, from it comes from them really knowing that I care about them as a person. I'm not just here to teach you for this year and that's it. I'm here for you as an individual. So I do love it. And I do want to say that amongst educators from elementary to middle school to high school, each one that you have a conversation with could not imagine teaching the other levels. Like I could not imagine teaching elementary. I couldn't imagine. I'm not tying no shoes. I'm not wiping no snotty noses. That's not me.
Right.
But having conversations about literature and you're getting your first job, that's me. I'm your cheerleader. I couldn't even do middle school. They think they know everything and they don't. I couldn't do that. So everybody's in their pocket where they feel best suits them.
That's amazing. Now, on your journey to become a teacher, some people knew at a very early age exactly what they wanted to do. But some people came to their chosen profession through experience. Maybe there was a fork in the road for them. Maybe there was a teacher along the way, an educator along the way that had such a profound effect that you discovered a love for it. So I want to know that, first of all, how did you know that you wanted to teach? And then how did you pick literature? What was it about that? I'm a writer myself, but don't tell nobody. How did
You
you
just
know?
told everybody.
How did you know that this is what I want to do as far as the teaching thing, and this is the area where I want to do it? How did you come about that?
It's very interesting. I was one of those people who came about it in a roundabout way. I never imagined myself as a teacher going through high school. When I first went to college, at first I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist. Took the first class, and the professor had realized that there were some areas or some topics that caused great grief within the students in the class. So she said, you know, we're just going to give you a highlight of what this is about, and then we're going to take our break. If this isn't for you, you know, you probably shouldn't come back. It's okay. And I left the class crying. I was just so emotionally impacted. And I said, well, I don't feel I can serve students in that or serve children in that way, because how can I help you? And I'm sitting there crying and I'm falling apart. So then I thought I wanted to be a journalist. So I went and enrolled in a journalism class, and they were talking about now, okay, I graduated in 1990. So journalism then is a little different than now. Didn't have social media. You had to be, they said you have to be aggressive. You got to go get the story. I was like, I'm not aggressive in that kind of way. So that wasn't for me. And so I'd done 2 years of college, couldn't find what I wanted to do. So I went to work. And it wasn't until later, after I had my 3 children, I was a stay-at-home mom. And when my youngest was born, I said, well, I think I'll start a home daycare. I'm at home with the kids anyway. My 2 oldest were in school. So I started a home daycare. And I started putting together curriculum for my child and the 2 other children that I was taking care of who were 1 year old. And we were working on letters and colors and sounds. And I said, I'm good at this. I want to be a teacher, but I don't want to teach little ones. And I've always loved reading. I can read from sunup to sundown. I was one of those people. My mother would come in the room and be like, it's past bedtime, please. One more page, one more page. And so I knew I needed to combine those things. I'm good at curriculum. I have a great rapport with students, but I love literature. So I married those 2 together and knew I needed to teach the high school level because I wanted those rich discussions that comes from discussing literature. So I was a late in life teacher.
Wow. I wonder if you have the same experience that I do. When I'm teaching, the thing that keeps me into it is the light bulb experience, is what I call it.
Yes.
When you know that you have a class in front of you, they don't know. And there's information that you're giving, and they start,
The eyes glaze over
I don't
and
know.
they're looking at you confused. Yes.
But there's something that you give them that they can bite onto. And as you continue to feed them, the light bulb happens and they get it. For me,
Yes.
that's the hook. Is that what keeps you engaged?
That does keep me engaged, but I also think it's perspective.
Mhm.
Literature was not created in a vacuum, and we don't read it in a vacuum. So, our perspective, our culture, our race, the things that we experience, it is a lens through which we view literature. And that's an element that we talk about, the critical lenses. So when I'm reading a story, although it may be the 5th, 6th time I've taught it, I'm teaching a different group of students. And when you teach them about the lenses, and they start to use their lens, recognize their lens, and speak about their lens, I feel like I'm having an aha moment. So the light bulb moment would be more for me than for them. And I go, oh, I hadn't thought about that, because our perspectives are different. And I tell them, I said, I'm a Black woman. I'm 52, so I'm older than you. I said, so I don't know what it's like to walk in your shoes. We're in different generations. We're different races, different cultures. I didn't grow up here. I grew up somewhere else. So when you talk about your lens, I'm here to listen. And I also want to share my lens with you.
Wow, that is amazing. Now, teaching, especially at the high school level, I understand that it's more than just what you do in the classroom. You become a mentor. And I really want to unpack that part if you don't mind. And this is really the avenue in Black excellence that I want to really explore if you don't mind.
I love that you mentioned that. When I got my first teaching job, the principal asked me, what is the one thing you want your students to learn when they leave your class? I said, I want them to know that I care about them as people. I said, they don't care how much I know until they know how much I care. And
Mhm.
if they never know anything else, I want them to know that I see them, I value them, and I'm there for them. The rest of it will fall in line.
Yeah.
And when I got hired, they shared with me, that's why I hired you. I saw that in you, and I needed that on my campus. I was like, oh, Okay. And I was just speaking from the heart. I need to be real with you because if this isn't going to be a good fit for you, a good fit for me, I don't want to be here because I know what God has for me is perfect. And if this isn't the spot, I need to move to the spot that's right. And that has always been my philosophy. I want my students to know that I care about them. And let's be honest, students know when you're being real with them.
Oh,
They
yes.
know when you faking the funk.
Yes, they do.
And that I think that's why a lot of my students, especially the ones who see me as a mentor, want to stay in touch with me afterwards. And I've had students, they'll send me a Facebook request, and I say, well, I'm not accepting it until after you graduate. So you just leave it there. And on graduation, they'll say, you going to accept my request? I have seniors right now who said, I followed you on TikTok and I know you're not going to follow me back until then. At the graduation, right then, as soon as I turn my tassel, I said, but I'm gonna be busy. Nope, right then. When I turn my tassel, I said, okay, okay. And I believe that they see in me what I want them to see, that I genuinely care about them, that I am for them. And I think that's what they come to expect of me, and they trust that in me.
Right. Now, you teach an American literature, correct?
Well, they call it English literature because we can travel anywhere from American written literature, British literature, dystopian. We do it all.
That now you're teaching minority children,
Mhm.
Latino children, Black children, and I would say, now I'm not the expert you are. I would
Okay.
say in these communities, I'm using myself as an example. And we came up. It was not strongly reinforced to us the need to learn this type of thing. Yes, we knew about reading, writing, and arithmetic, but I couldn't figure out how English literature was going to help me pay my
Mm,
bills.
yeah.
How are you able to let um, uh, uh, young man or young woman know, hey, listen, I've already told you that I want to be an aircraft mechanic.
Mhm.
I've already told you that I want to be a doctor. I've already told you I want to be a fireman, whatever it is. How are you going to convince me that learning this is going to help me beyond this classroom? How are you able to do that?
Well, I talk about the life skills. I said, well, you're going to buy a car, right? Are you going to read the contract? Are you just going to trust that the person sitting across from you has your best interests in mind? I said, what do you think happens when you buy a house? Have you seen the packet work to buy a house? Are you going to read that? Make sure it's a good deal. How do you know there's not something in there that's going to undermine you actually purchasing this house? Leasing an apartment, whatever you're going to do, there's going to be some contracts involved. And those contracts are written at a higher education level. So you need to be able to familiarize yourself with reading literature that you may not like, but that you need to read. And I also like to, in terms of the so there's the fiction text and there's the nonfiction. In terms of the fiction text, I like to incorporate um, some more newer literature. I especially love to give my students choice. And I think that creates a lot of the buy in that they'll come along with me in the journey because they're given some choice. I recently did a unit with what class was that? My AP Lit class. And we had two different books going on. I let them choose. So I think about 75% of the class wanted to read Real Women Have Curves by Josefina Lopez. And then 25% wanted to read, we read The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And I was able to structure it with many lessons on looking at character,
Mhm.
indirect versus direct characterization, setting. How does the setting actually, in some ways, act as a character in what it is that you're reading? So I give them a little mini lesson. This is what we're looking for. Then I'd give them a question and they would discuss it in their groups. So they're discussing it amongst their peers. Then I'd pull my cold calling cards. Okay, I need one from that group. Okay, what came out of your group discussion? So I like to alleviate some of the pressure. They don't feel like they have to share with the whole class something that came out of their own mouth. Maybe they were confused, but through the conversations that they had with their peers, they can say, well, we were discussing blah, 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 blah. And I think that helps. Choice definitely helps. So I think we have to think outside of the box. One of the things that I was upset about, and I will say upset, not mad, but upset, when I became a teacher, I was like, why are we still reading the same books we read when I was in high school? You do know there's other books out there,
Right,
right?
right.
And I am fortunate that I work in a district that allows us freedom of reign in terms of what we read. We are just supposed to make sure we're teaching the standards. So the district will say, we need you in Q1 to cover these standards. And I just take those standards, I phrase them into questions to apply to what we're reading. So they're learning the skills and the standards, but we're reading something that's more modern. We read mirror books, and I'll explain that because I know people say mirror books, so that students can feel a little more engaged. So now mirror books. Mirror books are books through which a student can see themselves reflected, their race, their culture, their environment. And it's a way for them to see themselves as readers.
Oh, man. Okay. Now, another question. I'm looking at your journey in academia.
Mhm.
I know that many who are public school educators, the degree process can many times equal promotions.
Yes.
Someone with your credentials, I imagine it would not be difficult to leave the classroom. But you have taken your dissertation and all that comes with it, and you've stayed in the classroom.
Mhm.
What's the reason for that? In other words, what I'm trying to ask is, not that it's a bad thing to get the credential to go up, but some want the credential to perfect what they're doing where they are. Do you
And
fall
that's
into one of
me.
those? Okay.
That
Okay.
is me. One of the things that had me questioning some of what's going on and the lack of advancements in curriculum. I told you about the question, why are we still reading these same books? I had a conversation with a 10th grader, and this would be about 7 years ago. And he said, reading is so boring. And I remember feeling just taken aback, like, what? I can go anywhere in a book. If I want to know anything, want to take an adventure, all I have to do is open a book. And he said, but it's so boring. And we opened it up to a whole class discussion at this point. Who else thinks reading's boring? And surprisingly, right, I'm taken aback again, a lot of hands went up. But that wasn't the end of it for me. I started posing questions. I said, well, have you always disliked reading? Have you always thought it was boring? And universally, they said, no, we didn't always feel that way. Well, when do you feel like you started thinking reading was boring? And we pinpointed it to middle school. And what I remember thinking is that that's when they lost choice. In elementary, your class, your teacher takes you to the library, you pick a book, you come back, and the teacher goes, okay, we're going to read for 15 minutes. You pick the book, you sit down, you're reading it, you are happy as a lark. But in middle school, English language arts, your teacher says, this is what we're going to spend 4 weeks, 6 weeks reading. You didn't pick that book. Imagine somebody telling you, we're going to go see this movie. And you're like, but I don't really want to see that movie. It's not my style. I find it boring. But you're going to go see this movie. How are you going to act in the movie theater? Oh, is it over yet?
Right.
So we think about it that way. And I started having those conversations with my colleagues in the English language art department. And this is where I realized that it wasn't just my mindset. One of my colleagues, who happens to be a white woman, she goes, I know we're reading books by old dead white men. I said, okay, well, right. I was like, okay, it's not just me. Someone else besides me sees this. I said, well, I know what I'm doing in my classroom that works, but we also know that we have to put some respect on our name to get people to hear what we're saying. So that was what sent me back to school to get my PhD. My focus was to revamp curriculum. How can we make it more engaging for students? How can we bring newer, more relevant books into the classroom? And along that journey, I developed a love for research. I don't know how it happened, but I want to find answers. And so that was what led to my dissertation, where I studied the impact of mirror books on sophomore students' attitude towards reading. And surprisingly, I got some answers, but I had even more questions. So, what I learned is the survey that we use, the SARA Survey of Adolescent Reading Attitudes, is broken down into 4 subscales. It measures their reading towards academic print, reading towards academic digital, recreational print, recreational digital. So we had the students take the survey prior to reading mirror books, and then they took the survey after the exposure to mirror books. Interestingly enough, what I saw was an improvement in attitude towards academic print. And I also saw a drop in attitude towards recreational digital. Recreational digital is your social media. Now, the change in the numbers did not measure what they would consider statistically significant, but there was a change. So now I'm like, okay, well, there's something there. What's the tipping point? What do we do next? So my next research is I want to see if there's a correlation between Lexile levels and students' attitude towards reading. So we naturally would assume that students who have a less favorable attitude towards reading probably have a lower Lexile level. We spent a lot of time talking about students and how they're reading multiple grades below level, but our conversations very rarely go beyond that, the measurement. If we really want to do something about it, we've got to start having these probing questions. And during my PhD process, our school site was using an app that's, I forget what it's called, whatworks.com. So you can go on there. Let's say you're having a particular issue at your school. You can say, I'm looking for research in this field. And it'll say if these things have been statistically measured to be effective in targeting what it is you're looking at. So I looked at in reading intervention for secondary, and there was nothing. There was a lot of reading intervention programs for 6th grade and below, but nothing at secondary. So we already know they're reading below level, but you tell me that no one's studying intervention for the demographics we need to work with. So I found a lot more questions than I left with answers, but I have the passion to pursue and get some answers for us.
This is great. These are things that the average person would not think about.
Mm-mm.
We always get broadcast to us the failures of public education, but we don't quite often have people like you who are on the inside and who can articulate to us, listen, we know that we have a problem in this area, and this is some of the research and the work that we're doing to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I got to ask you something. Did your doctorate open the door for more people to listen to you? And did it give more weight for you to have a say on the curriculum? Like you said, did it put some more respect on your name?
Respect on my name. Yes, it actually did. Speaking of opening doors, my dissertation chair, who I worked with, Dr. Went, She found out that ERA was accepting. ERA is American Education Research Association, and they do an annual conference. She said, I really think your dissertation on mirror books would be just what is needed. I think you should put together a paper. So your dissertation is 100 pages long. You truncate it into a shorter essay. I think you should submit it to present at ERA. And so I did, and I've been selected to present my research at the conference coming up in Denver, Colorado, near the end of April. And not only am I presenting the research as an iPoster, I'm actually being invited to give an e-lightning TED Talk. So I get to give a 3 to 4 minute presentation on my research, what we discovered, and then 1 to 2 minutes of Q&A. So it opened that door for me. And through the process of working on my PhD, some of the things that I was learning, I found a fix for one of the issues that we were having. And I am so grateful that I work with an administrative team that empowers us to lead. And so I developed a credit recovery program that is based on demonstration of mastery. So if student fails a class, 9th grade, 10th grade, typically what happens is to recover those missing credits, they would either have to sit through the class again, or they do online credit recovery. Now, online credit recovery, we found some students were cheating.
No,
They were cheating,
not the students.
not the students. So I said, well, what if we can put together some assessments that by the time they're 11th grade, 12th grade, you've been exposed to the same standards that have just grown a little more in depth with higher Lexile texts. Let's see if we can come back and reassess them on those 9th grade or 10th grade skills and standards and allow them to recoup their credit. And I went to my assistant principal. I said, hey, I have this idea. And she listened patiently while I laid it all out. She said, well, if your team is on board, sure. So I went to the principal. I was like, okay, this is my idea. And I'm gonna tell you, having admin that believe in you makes all the difference. And he said the same thing. If your team is on board, go for it. So I went to my team. I said, hey, team, I have this idea. I laid it all out for them. And they were like, yeah. I said, we can make sure they're not cheating. That's
Right.
what they want. We can make sure they're not cheating and still allow them to recoup those credits. And sure enough, we did it. We started a little later in that year, about October, and we were able to have about 40 some students recover credits, and be about 30 of those were seniors. And so they graduated on time, demonstrated mastery. And then the next year, it was so successful, they said, well, we're going to put it on the schedule again. And this year, it's in its 3rd year. And so that actually inspired me to write a book, Credit Recovery Through Demonstration of Mastery. And so it now in its 3rd year has expanded to incorporate social science. World history is doing something similar. And there's another school in our district who is considering adopting it too.
That's what I'm talking about. This is really excellence.
Thank you.
And this is what I wanted you here. This is so important to us, and I want people to hear this.
Thank you.
This question may be a little, but I gotta ask it. Once again, you work in an environment where you have mostly minority students. You yourself are a minority.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that because you yourself are a minority, that you are able to engage and meet them where they are because you understand the culture of being a minority? And also, along with that question, a little backup here, if you were teaching at a predominantly white environment, do you think that you would have the same level of effectiveness when it comes to connecting with students who you don't share a like culture?
Those are two interesting questions. Regarding the first, I think that my feet being firmly planted in reality
Mm.
allows me to be open and honest, earnest with my students about the challenges that I face, that my mother faced, and that I see are out there in the landscape. And I know that they hear my heart because I'm speaking from experience. And one of the things that was very prevalent in doing the research for my dissertation is that the educational system is educating people it never planned to educate.
Ah,
It was originally established to educate white men, not even white women. And over the course of the evolution of the system, it hasn't changed much, but it's educating a different demographic. So,
mm,
in some ways, we can feel like a square peg being pushed into a round hole because a lot of evolution hasn't taken place. When I went through my teacher preparation program, I felt I came out pretty okay. I got this. I know some stuff. But going into my PhD program, I was like, where was all this when I was in my teacher prep program? I didn't know anything about culturally relevant pedagogy. What?
right.
Where was this? And as I researched, there was a one of the peer-reviewed journal articles that I read that talked about the absence of these courses to prepare tomorrow's teachers to teach outside of the white majority, right? So I really feel that that has empowered me as a teacher because
Mm,
I'm taking this new knowledge, personal experience, and using it in my classroom.
right.
Now, do I think I could educate as effectively at a school that was predominantly white? It depends on how woke they're willing to be.
I
I
appreciate that
can't
answer.
unlearn what I know.
Right.
What I know is it's facts. So if we don't have a system that is willing to be self-reflective and say, okay, we have some growing to do. Or if I'm teaching at a school that's not willing to do that growing, it wouldn't work.
Mm.
It wouldn't work.
Now, I got to ask a question that may be a little difficult. We have a new administration at the federal level,
Mm.
and we're seeing a total change in the attitude and the approach to education amongst various other areas. And there is serious talk about getting rid of the Department of Education at the federal level. I can only imagine that in academia, there has to be a discussion because if we change that at the federal level, that has a huge impact on what we do at the state level, down to the district level, then down to the local school on the campus and in your department. How are you all dealing with the looming change if it actually happens? And as
Well,
you,
oh, I'm
okay,
sorry. No, keep going.
if it does happen, if the federal Department of Education is taken away, if you look down the road in 5 years, what would public education look like?
Oh, well, I think the first part is to consider the role of Department of Education. What do they do? They are responsible for funneling money through the states to the various counties and the district. Some states, counties will fare better than others. A lot of your, and I went on a deep dive. I had to research. I was like, oh my God, am I gonna have a job? And money goes back and forth between states. Like state of California, we put money into the federal government, but then we get some back for schools.
Mhm.
A very small portion of our funding comes from the federal level. I'm not as worried about us in California as I am for some other states who get a lot of money from the federal government to fund their classes. And it's going to mean some pretty dire situations for some states. So, and then we're talking about in terms of making sure that students, special education students who have IEPs, are their needs being met? There's a lot of concern that, will the same enforcement happen with underfunded schools? We already know schools are underfunded. We already know that. For a teacher to go to school for 4 years plus an additional year to get their curriculum, they've done 5 years in school. And are you starting them off at what they would start if they went and did something else? That's the comparison, right? And now on top of that, you might be asking them to do the same amount of work with less pay, or not necessarily pay for teachers, but less resources.
Yes.
You know, my district is kind of bracing for a little bit of cuts, not direly because we're in California, but for the first time, they told my department that they're going to start charging us to make our repro graphics. It's minimal, $100 for the department. I was like, a whole $100, but but in my district, I've been there 12 years. It was just send it off. They do it and we get it, and that's it. $100? That's shocking to me.
Right.
But what happens for the schools who can't do that at all? The districts. Right. So I think it's sad, but it's really going to have to be a wait and see how this shakes out. You know, yeah.
All right. I want you to put your coach hat on for a minute. Now, when it comes to Coach Brown, and you have
to call me Coach Dr. Brown. And I told him, I said, that's a whole mouthful. You don't have to all say that. You can just still call me Coach Brown. You earned your doctorate. We have to put it in there. I said, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Put some respect on her name.
They do. They love me. They love me.
That is
Dr.
awesome.
Brown.
So the coaching piece, of course, in the classroom, you're dealing with the academic piece, but still meeting students where they are, still mentoring. But I imagine that in the coaching part, the mentoring is a little different because you're not dealing with as much academics. What is your why and what gives you the satisfaction from the coaching piece as opposed to what you get out of the classroom?
Oh, I feel like they keep me young. They do. I mean, we will do like little dances, or if they're my biggest cheerleaders, I have to tell you, when I start doing a little dance, I'd be like, all right, coach. Yes. And I feel they keep me young. We go to cheer camp over the summer, and it's a great bonding experience, not just for the team, but for us. We get to go and have breakfast together and just enjoying them playing games together, learning new routines, and going the away games, doing our meal stops on the way back where everybody's kind of relaxed, just talking and having a good time. It really allows me to fully divest myself into that mentor role. And like you said, less on the academic, but still checking up on their grades. And I can have those conversations. Why do you have this grade? What is this? When is this going to change? So next week, it's not going to be like this, right? Okay. So it's really almost like a flip of the script, less academic, more mentoring.
Wow, this is awesome. My mind is blown. To be honest with you, what I thought this conversation was going to be and what it is, you have exceeded my expectation.
Oh, thank you.
And I had a high expectation.
Oh, thank you.
I want to give you some time to talk about anything that maybe I didn't cover. Certainly, the audience can see that you certainly personify Black excellence when it comes to the education piece and the mentoring piece. And I'm gonna tell you, when I first saw the title of your book, I was like, she's a literature professor. Why is she writing something on credit?
And a lot of people see that because they're thinking with the fiscal mindset, right?
Right, right,
But educators will go, "Oh, high school? Yeah." It's
right,
a different lingo, right? Yeah.
right. You helped me. So
Forever the teacher.
that's right. If I haven't covered something that maybe you want the audience to know, here's your opportunity.
Well, I would love if you are teaching at a high school, if you are an administrator, if you're a teacher, and you're looking for new ways to bring credit recovery because some of the things that are going on aren't working. We're either putting students back in the class, and now our class schedules are crazy. We have 35, 36 students in a classroom. We're trying to help them graduate. Or we know they're cheating on those online credit recovery programs. I encourage you to reach out to me. You can find me at my website, drvalcinebrown.com. The book is also available on Amazon, which we're going to talk about that, but it's on Amazon.
I saw it on Amazon.
Look at me shooting myself in the foot. But I had already, paid for the cover to be done, got the ISBN when, Jeff Bezos lost his little marbles. But listen, see how real I am? This
Yes,
is
I
me.
love
This
it.
is just the unfettered me. But it is available on Amazon in paperback. It's available in Kindle. And I'm in the process of recording an audiobook because teachers are busy. If you can just push play and listen to it in the car. And the book is written in a way that I basically outline the history of what's going on in credit recovery, the history of how we have experienced success, and set you up to be able to utilize the staff you already have, resources you already have to have a better credit recovery program. There's no licensing fees at all, and you can make sure they're not cheating.
Oh, wow. So now listen, we know that you have an iPoster coming up. We know that you're doing this e-lightning presentation at ERA 2025. How can we find it? Because we don't want to miss that and we want to support you
Oh, let's see. Well, if you could come to the convention.
in Denver, Colorado,
Educators.
right?
Yes, educators. If you are going to ERA, I am set to present on Wednesday, the first day of the conference. You can even look it up online, ERA 2025 conference. Go over to the schedule, search my name, Valcine Brown. It will tell you exactly where it is and where it's happening. That's the only thing I have on my docket so far, but who knows? The year is early.
Yes, this is awesome. Well, let me ask you, do you allow yourself to be booked for public speaking engagements?
Yes, I do. I would love to come and share what I have learned in my deep dive into literacy and what's going on, as well as the upcoming research I have coming up. One of my colleagues, which I started talking about this earlier, but I show a little more depth. One of my colleagues who also has his doctorate, he teaches at the elementary school level, Jason Moore, Dr. Moore. So we're going to be approaching this as a widespread age range from elementary all the way till secondary. And my doctoral professor, Dr. Wynch, she's probably going to join us on that as well. So the three minds are really going to do that. We are hoping to do our IRB over the summer and to be able to get our data in September and to have the statistical calculations done by the end of September. So 7 months from now. Yeah.
And Dr. Brown, one more thing before we go. I can't let you escape without this one. Now, I believe I've seen you on Hillman Top University.
Yes.
And you got an agricultural thing that you're doing.
Homestead.
Now, Dr.
Yeah.
Brown, that's a whole nother piece of you that a lot of
Yes.
people. Can you take a few minutes to tell me about that? I looked at that. I said,
Yes.
no, wait a minute. She just shocked me again.
I consider myself a multifaceted jewel. Just when you think you've seen all the angles, I turn.
Right.
Yes, I have been First of all, I'm in Southern California, as we mentioned, and I live in the desert area outside of Palm Springs. So it was nothing but sand. But I wanted to garden because I enjoy growing things. And so I started my garden 8 years ago. And 5 years ago, so 3 years after that, I added chickens to my homestead. And I've just been enjoying it. For me, it is a way to really divest myself of anything that's work related, research related, school related in any capacity, and just put my hands in the soil, almost like grounding myself.
Mm.
With these beautiful little nails, I dig in the dirt, I'm telling you. And when Hillman Talk University came up, I was like, well, I can talk about that. I've been doing it, gardening for 8 years, keeping chickens for 5 years. I can share my experience. Yeah, so I'm just enjoying sharing.
Okay. So an omelet and chicken cordon bleu at your residence is a whole different experience.
It is. If you have not had a fresh egg, and I mean the hen just laid it, you don't know what you're missing, especially an organic egg. So my chickens are organic. So I feed them mealworms, which I keep a mealworm farm too. So yes.
Oh.
So I feed them oats and mealworms. I also buy commercial organic food. I chop up cauliflower, broccoli, zucchini, and I have mulberry trees. I throw down those mulberries. If you have not had an egg from an organic chicken who eats fruits and vegetables, you don't know what an egg tastes like. When I travel now and I'm forced to eat eggs that aren't organic, I can taste the difference. I'm like, okay. I taste the difference. When you crack it, the yolks are almost like an orangey, vibrant color. It's a different experience.
Well, Dr. Brown, you are the personification of excellence.
Thank you so much.
We put the spotlight and the showcase on Black excellence, but we just appreciate you saying yes. You could have been doing a lot of things with your time today, but you're taking some time with us, and we thank you for it. And I want people to support Dr. Brown. Now, you can find her like I did. I found her on TikTok.
You can find me on TikTok.
Now, let me tell you.
We got to let them know all my content is not just school related. It's got the fit checks. I'm telling you.
Yes.
The fit
now,
checks.
I'm telling you. Be careful. Don't open that when you're sitting in a meeting. You're going to be like me. You're going to have to turn your camera off and duck down and get that laugh in. Dr. Brown will have you rolling. So, and then we know you're on TikTok. Are you any other places in social media?
I'm on Fanbase. I'm on LinkedIn professionally. And I do have an author page on Facebook.
All right. So follow Dr. Brown and all those places. Make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, all those good things. We want to help her out. Dr. Brown, thank you. You are truly an example of Black excellence and excellence in general. Thank you for what you're doing with those young minds in Southern California. I pray your success as a mentor, as an educator, as a researcher, as a person who has influence on the curriculum there. And it is way more valuable than I think a lot of people know. You have helped, I would imagine, many educators who will see this this interview, and you've probably helped a lot of parents who maybe don't understand what goes on behind the scenes in building curriculum and teaching their students. And I would imagine also some young people who may be on the fence about whether they want to be an educator or not. You've probably helped them. And so I really do appreciate you shining your light in this showcase of excellence with Carl's Conversations. We really do appreciate your time and your many, many resources that you shared here. Thank you so much.
And Carl, thank you again so much for inviting me to have this conversation with you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And thank you for having this platform where, like me and the many other people you're going to interview, you're giving them the opportunity to share their areas of expertise and share hope and resources. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, let me tell you, Dr. Brown, this will not be the last time I will contact you. When I come in contact with people like you, I like to stay connected. So
Please
I'm all over
do.
social media now. So
Please do.
you'll see an email pop up. Remember me?
Yes, please do. Thank you so much. And I'd love to come back when we've done this research that we're going to be working on now. I'd love to come back and be able to share my findings from that research as well.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm going to reach out because I want you to come back after you do your presentation in Denver because I want to
Yes.
hear all about it. This is so
Oh, I
interesting.
would love
Yes,
to. Thank
we'll
you.
we'll schedule that. Hey, listen, y'all. Her name is Dr. Valcine Brown. She's a public school educator in Southern California. She's an author. She's a content creator. She's a mentor, and she's a cheering coach. She is the personification of Black excellence, and that's why we've had her here on Carl's Conversations. We're going to say good evening for you for right now, but we'll be back real soon. Stay in tune. If you have not already done so, go find Carl's Conversations on YouTube. Find us on Facebook and on TikTok. And don't just stop by. Hit the subscribe button, like and follow, and then go tell somebody about it. All right. Until next time, y'all be well. Bye bye for now.